So hello, thank you for tuning in to Fashion Bytes chat, and thanks to those who will catch up with this later. It's me, Hillary, founder of Fashion Bytes platform. We're here to support and nurture creative entrepreneurs. As you know, we usually hold live panel discussion events, educational events to help people run their fashion businesses, filling the gap between education and what happens in real life. So this is our way of still connecting, collaborating, and sharing with you all. We're super excited to have fashion designer Victor Alvarez with us today. So let me get him on right now. Just waiting for him to connect. Hello.
Hello there. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Surviving the
Good.
coronavirus.
Yeah, we're all in that same little boat, but we'll survive it. We'll survive it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure.
Before we get started, go ahead and introduce yourself, Victor, please.
I'm Victor Alvarez. I'm the design manager of Dewhirst. I've been working for Dewhirst for the last year. Before, I've been working as a product development manager for German street design. I worked before in the past for Dewhirst for 2 years as a designer, and then before I've been working in luxury brands from Spain and the United States, being costume designer for movies in Los Angeles, and in total I have like 8 years experience as a designer.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So let's dive into these questions. First of all, can you tell us what you think about Fashion Week Men's? We had it last week, and it's our first into the digital space. How do you think it went?
Messy.
Elaborate.
Messy, I think is the best description. People were not organized. It was difficult to manage anyway. Creativity was not on the verge of progress because there were more important things to handle at the moment, like surviving financially. And it was like literally so reflected, absolutely reflected on creative wise. But if we go to quality, if we go to those specific details of what a fashion week means, then obviously each brand stands by their DNA, by their customers. So, I mean, it's just my opinion.
But it's welcome. It's absolutely fine. We're thinking of past fashion weeks and how we need to change to move forward. Do you think currently how we have fashion weeks should change, like the seasons and separating men and women? Do you think it should stay the same or change?
Well, it shouldn't have been divided from the very beginning. It was divided for ladies wear because fashion was understood as something more driven towards women, and it shouldn't be. I think equality means to have a fashion week united for both men and ladies, and also financially speaking for a brand, it makes more sense and coherency to put all the outfits together in order to sell them to the buyers together as one collection. So that on one hand. What's going to happen in the future? In the future, probably, as we could see on the Danish Fashion Week, it can be the way as it's been for the last couple of years, but growing more sustainably speaking, the way should be more aligned.
Okay, thank you. Now, working with Dewhirst, what we can, I mean, we obviously know the current situation and can all imagine the effects on the business. But what type of measures are being put in place towards helping recovery as a large manufacturer?
Well, that's a very big question. In the short term, the measures are more driven towards Well, first, in order to give you a perfect reply to this question, we have to understand how the fashion is being working. Most of the high street retailers have been putting all the eggs on one nest, which is China.
Right.
With the COVID mainly coming from that country and spreading all over the world, obviously you have to have a lot of safety measures, compliance and security measures applied to the goods coming from that country. And also if you have production based and set up on China, then it will delay. So in the short term, all of them, in the majority of them, has been struggling. On the other hand, people with different production lines like Cambodia, like Thailand, like Vietnam, like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and so many, Sri Lanka, for example, they've been not struggling that much, but obviously in the short term, the struggle came not from them, not from their side, but because in the Western countries, everything was under lockdown.
Right.
So there was no other way but selling online. Now, do they all have a good online setup system for selling? Maybe yes, maybe no. It depends. I can tell you from the customer base we work with, there was a huge impact on tailoring, on garments that they don't feel the needs current customers need at the moment for being at home, working from home mainly. So that's the short term. The short term is about being creative in order to survive this struggle. And the long term is to guarantee financially that you can survive this period of time, which is quite difficult.
True, true. Okay, so leading on from that, as a designer,
yeah,
how do you design with sustainability in mind? I mean, that's going to be a big part of the industry going forward, I would imagine.
Well, in fact, it depends how you approach the design process. From my company perspective, we apply the circular economy. Circular economy is not like, for example, in Spain or in Italy, circular design means that applied for jersey, for knitwear, is called circular products. But circular economy applied into fashion means that everything can be reused or rethought to put on the production line system, right? So if you consider that process, sustainability is on it 100%. But sustainability is a term that is being used a lot throughout these last years from many people. But in fact, you need a lot of certificates and you need a commitment as a company to put all these things under, not on the ideas, but in reality. So we've been one of the first ones applying 100% recycled polyester for linings, the canvas for all the jackets, BCI cotton, better cotton initiative, which is like cotton regulated. So it is not necessarily sustainable, but it's regulated. So it helps not to overproduce cotton in a way. And then all the details and all the trims from the garments as well. So the vast majority of the garments that we make for the high street retailers under request are sustainable. For the 2025, most of our customers, like Asos, like Topshop, they are committed as well to be 100% sustainable on this. We started 2 years ago with a sub-brand from Asos called Collusion. Collusion is a brand more focused on to the Gen Z base customer, and the target for them is using only recycled, sustainable, and fabrics that are not coming from animals or derived from animal hair or something like that. And it was quite challenging at the time, not only for finding the right sourcing, but also for finding the right price for them, because they are high street retailers. So in a way, the challenge is constantly in there. You just need to not only innovate, but rethink what is good for now and what is best for the future.
Right. And speaking of price, that's always going to be a factor or prohibitive for the high street? Because can you have something that's considered sustainable and at a low cost for the consumers?
I think generally speaking, people understand high street fashion as a business with lots of volume, and perhaps that is right if we go back to the 80s or the 90s. But nowadays, and actually most of the manufacturers, mills, every single supplier that you normally work with, they are expecting from you a huge amount of volume. But nowadays, it's not happening, and in that percentage of volume, if you understand what I mean. Nowadays, it's more driven towards what we understand as a slow fashion for high street, which is not that big, not that small, but big enough to support your stock base and your customer.
Okay, that's good. Right. So if I remember correctly, you started your own brand as a designer. You started to design your own collection separate from
I
Dewhirst.
started alongside 3 other partners in crime. It was in 2017. It's called Marte. But nowadays we couldn't keep going because we had excess of demand, and we couldn't supply financially the big amount of effort that it required from us to keep going. So it's a good story about slow fashion sustainability, bringing technical elements from sportswear into the everyday lives of people. I think our biggest inspiration was Lululemon on one hand, the Canadian brand for athleisure, and on the other hand, Everlane, because of the radical transparency that they have. And if you mix both into a brand that is in Europe, that is produced on the best with the best manufacturers in Europe. Actually, we had the factory making all the pret-a-porter for Stella McCartney, and then we were mixing technology from sportswear into casual wear. So the result was quite interesting, and it was like, for example, we were featuring GQ as one of the best emerging brands in Spain to have a look at. But unfortunately, and we were also sponsored by, I don't know if you heard about the brand called El Ganso, but El Ganso is very similar to Polo Ralph Lauren in Spain, and these guys got like into a contract with Louis Vuitton with Hennessy. They got a lot of income in terms of investing, and they allow us to work with them on the startup offices. But unfortunately, we couldn't go on for personal and professional reasons.
Okay. No, that's a shame. It sounded like something like really good and amazing.
Yeah, people are still asking me for more garments. I hope I can satisfy the needs sometime in the future.
Oh, wow. I'm going to come back to that, but I saw there was a question for you back about the high street with slow fashion. There's a thought that it will crash the production supply chain. Do you think that that's possible? Or maybe the person can post the question again.
Can you remake the question, because it's a little bit confusing?
Yeah, that's my fault, but I think she'll put it back again. But with launching your brand, what would you say that? Oh, here it comes. We're coming back. Some people think that if fast fashion crashes, it will cause the production chains to crash. What are your thoughts on this?
That's a really good question, actually. Well, some people think that if fast fashion crashes, fast fashion is difficult. Is difficult to oversee if it will collapse in the future. It's true that the slow fashion is being more important nowadays, but Primark is still it's one of the main businesses in high street fashion that is actually making business and being profitable despite the COVID. And people are looking for prices. People are looking for not reusable, unfortunately. So I think in the long term, if we want that to happen, if we want that pace of slow fashion, we should educate the consumerism towards that. But as we speak, it's not going to happen. As we speak, there are so many businesses on the street market that they are actually aiming for the people to stop the lockdown and go to buy. And unfortunately, because the society is not educated that well in terms of buying less but more in that way, it will still happen in the long and in the short term. It's actually a really good question.
Thanks for that question. But what can we do slowly to get people to understand? But
to understand that we have to go through. Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry. There's a follow-up question. How will this affect all fashion production?
Well, in the crash, as they said, if we stop, definitely all the production chain will collapse. All the countries, for example, let's put examples. Bangladesh, as we speak, Bangladesh and Cambodia are one of the countries that, despite the COVID and despite the danger of exposing people for getting infected with it, there was so much regulation with this manufacturing process that, with some exceptions, they allowed people to go to the factories because they couldn't stop the Western production, in a way, the Western customer base to stop producing, because what companies have on the warehouse are actually something that is from the previous season. It doesn't make any sense to sell now previous seasons unless you put discounts. Those discounts were made and people didn't buy. Therefore, now most of the brands are getting driven towards athleisure and work from home clothing, based on but they are not changing the production process. The production chain will remain the same, and it needs to be regulated. But if that happens in the future, not in the near future, but let's say in the future, it will be a total collapse for what we understand now as high street fashion.
So the high street is doomed to collapse.
Those are not my words. Maybe
I should. I'll rephrase that.
But eventually, if you re-educate the people towards slow fashion, someone will get the business and someone will not get the business. So for that simple reason, it's a little bit doomed if you think it like that. But I'm not saying it. I'm just thinking about it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit more about creating your own brand and your own business, just for people who may be thinking of doing the same thing.
Yes.
And your biggest challenge during that time would be what? Is it the part about not continuing?
The biggest challenge at the beginning, well, you have a lot of challenges at the beginning, because you have to support financially your ideas, but you have to commit as well to your ideas. And you have a lot of competence outside, you have a lot of competitors. And you have to overcome the competitors in terms of being someone, or getting a name, or selling a product. So you have to understand a lot of different parts of how fashion works. And for that reason, you need to be experienced within the fashion business. You cannot start, it will be even more challenging. You can start everything if you commit to something, but obviously it helps if you understand a little bit the market, and if you have the money to afford it as well. So commitment it perhaps was for me the most important thing, because you have to believe in your idea, and also that idea will not be your way of making your living. You will have another job. So your idea will become as your side job, but increasingly you will spend more time on it based on your commitment. And then if the things work, then obviously you spend more, or you invest more time and effort and money, of course. I'm not sure if I'm replying to your question.
Pardon?
Am I replying to your question?
Oh, yes, of course. Yes. I was also wanting to ask you on that level of what type of advice would you give like a young fashion designer now with everything that's going on? People still want to have their own brand and have their own business. Are there anything that you would advise someone thinking of doing the same thing?
Yeah, I could advise. My first advice is like be patient. Be patient because perhaps you really want to put something on the table that no one else did, and maybe you do. But you also need experience. Fashion is an industry, okay. Fashion is a business, okay. But fashion is art for many people as well, and people spend a lot of time of their lives committed to the art. Therefore, you can learn from that. You can get experience from these people, and they are not dead. Most of them, they are most of them alive. So it's not bad to go and do internships. It's not bad to be an assistant designer. It's not bad to be a junior, senior. It's not bad to get experience from someone experienced, because it's a win-win for you. But obviously, if you feel encouraged, motivated, and you have all the skills that you think you require for doing your own business, why should not you do it?
Correct. But for yourself, Victor,
yeah,
what's next for you? And would you do another brand?
Well, what's next for me? I rather prefer to wait after the COVID happens, because you never know. I recently got married almost a year ago, so I have my head more focused on making a family. Therefore, I have my thoughts about moving, but maybe I should stay. Yeah, I cannot tell you, because actually you cannot predict the future based on the pandemic situation we are experiencing.
Okay. No, fair enough. Then I'd also like your thoughts on it's a challenging question, but do you think that fashion will bounce back?
In terms of what?
Well, at the moment, there are a lot of doors that are closing, and I think a lot of companies, they can't necessarily afford to put up the measures for the safety measures, and they have to do the best they can. Do you think that the thought process, especially the consumer thought process, will change, and the industry will adjust and come back from this whole situation?
I think fashion, as any other industry, is totally aware of the current situation the world is experiencing, and is affected by it. Just like the petrol, just like any other business that is struggling financially to survive. And I'm not sure if you read or if you follow Draper's The Business of Fashion and any other fashion journal about how the big companies and the small companies are trying to survive, but they are all under a constant weekly struggle. And I am aware of people getting fired for financial reasons in terms of making the business survive. So answering to your question, it would be ideal for us as a business to get all the people back to normality and consume as before. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in a month. It needs time, and we need to be patient on one hand. But on the other hand, you have to look for your liquidity. I totally understand that. And I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking that the government should support financially the industries, not only the fashion one, but all of them, to be part of the United Kingdom and overcome this situation together. It's very simple.
Yeah, simply said, but I guess
No, yeah. Of course.
I guess they're challenges that we're not exactly aware of, but there you go. I I am quite curious more about, you know, how we become more sustainable and how it doesn't seem to be regulated at the moment, and how do we get consumers to think more sustainably instead of, you know, buying so much? What's the marketing strategy that you would apply?
Okay, there are a couple of questions within one question, but I'm going to try to reply to all of them. So how to be sustainable within the business perspective? I think there are a lot of businesses that are already under certificates of sustainability. There are certificates of global sustainable standard and everything. But it's not only about the garments. You have to be sustainable. Sustainability can be a philosophy or can be something that you certificate just to get the pass, just to sell. And we cannot go towards that route, because sustainability will be just a fashion, will be just another product that is socially accepted. But it should be more the philosophy. It should be more not only delivering the garments with sustainable content, but also delivering the garments with a courier sustainably, and using your offices sustainably speaking. So it's a big jump to be 100% sustainable in the whole circular way. And obviously it takes time. I think people are committed, brands are committed as well. There are more committed brands than others, depending where you go, including the luxury brands. You can see marketing right now from luxury brands suspiciously going towards a trend of sustainability. But 5 years earlier, they were applying 4. So it's good that we say that is not the way, and they change. But you cannot delete all your past just through marketing campaigns. You have to be coherent with your DNA in a way. So you have to, like Stella McCartney, for example. Stella McCartney from the very beginning is like the best example in luxury fashion that people should be studying at school for how a business should be sustainable, a luxury business. On the high street, I think Asos is doing very well, but Inditex is excelling on it. Is the best one by far, understanding how sustainability should be applied without just being a fashion, a trend to follow. Right. That on one hand. Then sustainability in terms of education for the customers, for the consumers, is a little bit tricky, because who are you to educate the people? It should be regulated by law. Right. But because by law, it means that it's suggested in the parliament, in the Congress, and they are the representatives of the people. That's the only potential way to change something significantly. So with that law, you apply the regulations to the fashion companies. And it's a good circle in there, because everything is agreed and they have to proceed to do it.
Okay. There was another question that popped up. And that was a very quick 30 minutes. But in one word, what does fashion mean to you?
Time.
Okay.
Fashion means time.
Hey, I don't understand. Why does it mean time?
Well, fashion is a specific trend followed by specific people on a certain period of time. Therefore, it implies time. But from the business perspective, fashion is time, because you have to produce something with lead times for getting something on time to get to sell. So fashion is time. And if you get delayed, you are not into fashion, honestly. It's out of fashion.
Okay. All right. And we will leave it there. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks. No worries. Thanks again for tuning in. Join us again next week. We will have Dr. Carolyn Mayer. She's the creator of Psychology for Fashion, and we will speak about mental health and self-care.
Hooray.
Until then, we really, really need to talk about self-care. Thank you very, very much. Speak soon.
Okay. Pleasure. Take care.
Okay. Bye.